Throughout the annals of ancient history, few empires command as much awe and fascination as the Persian Empire. Its sprawling territories, its legendary rulers, and its monumental clashes with neighboring civilizations have all shaped the course of our collective past. But with greatness often comes an equally monumental downfall. So, who really defeated the Persian Empire? Was it the strategic brilliance of Alexander the Great? The relentless resilience of the Greeks? Or did the seeds of Persia's own collapse come from within? In this video, we'll journey across centuries of conquests and power struggles, unraveling the entire tapestry of Persian might, from the remarkable reign of Cyrus the Great to the moment it all came crashing down. We'll revisit pivotal battles, explore the empire's sophisticated administration and culture, and piece together the decisive factors behind Persia's ultimate defeat. So get comfortable and let your imagination traverse the deserts, mountains, and epic battlefields where empires rose and fell. By the end of this exploration, you'll see how a combination of visionary leaders, relentless foes, and internal tensions brought one of the most formidable powers in history to its knees. Welcome to a saga where ambition and destiny collided, rewriting the map of the ancient world. One, the foundations of the Persian Empire, Cyrus the Great. To understand who defeated the Persian Empire, we must first witness its birth under a man whose name still evokes respect, Cyrus the Great. In the mid-6th century BCE, the region we call Persia was fragmented among smaller kingdoms and tribes. Cyrus, a member of the Achaemenid family, inherited leadership over a relatively modest territory known as Anshan. Yet his vision extended far beyond these borders. One by one, Cyrus successfully overcame his neighbors, including the Median Empire, uniting vast lands under a single banner. Unlike most conquerors, Cyrus adopted a remarkably enlightened policy toward those he vanquished. He respected local customs and religions, often restoring temples and allowing displaced peoples to return home. His famous cylinder, sometimes called the First Declaration of Human Rights, signaled to the world that Cyrus was no ordinary ruler. His most significant early victory was against the Median king Astyages, which effectively merged Median and Persian territories. Yet Cyrus was far from satisfied. In 547 BCE, he advanced westward, clashing with King Croesus of Lydia, renowned for his immense wealth. After a series of maneuvers, Cyrus took Sardis, the Lydian capital, thereby cementing control over Asia Minor. This move not only expanded Persia's resources but also placed it at the doorstep of the Greek city-states in Ionia. By the time Cyrus turned his gaze further east, the Achaemenid realm was already becoming a vast mosaic of diverse peoples. Under his rule, Persia developed foundational administrative structures, a system of satrapies and local governors, all overseen by the king. Cyrus was lauded not just for his conquests, but for his ability to integrate territories into a cohesive empire. While he wouldn't live to see the greatest expansions, he laid the bedrock for what would become one of the most influential empires in human history. However, as we shall see, this swift rise inevitably set Persia on a collision course with equally determined adversaries. Two, Cambyses and Darius, expansion and consolidation. When Cyrus fell in battle around 530 BCE, his son Cambyses assumed the throne. Cambyses inherited a formidable empire but also an equally daunting challenge: maintaining momentum. In one of the more audacious campaigns of the ancient world, Cambyses turned his gaze toward Egypt, the land of the pharaohs. By 525 BCE, he had successfully conquered it, marking a monumental achievement that extended Persian rule from the Indus River to the Nile. Yet his reign was marred by stories of erratic behavior. Some accounts depict him as a tyrant who desecrated Egyptian temples, while others suggest internal plots back home destabilized his authority. Regardless, Cambyses died under mysterious circumstances, and the fate of the empire hung in the balance. Enter Darius I, often called Darius the Great, who seized power amidst court intrigue. Although not directly from Cyrus's line, Darius was a distant relative and a capable leader. One of his first tasks was to quell rebellions erupting across the empire, from Babylon to distant provinces. With meticulous organization, Darius restructured the administrative framework into satrapies, each governed by local overseers but ultimately accountable to him. He constructed roads, established a standardized currency, and developed a courier system, the Royal Road, that connected the empire's far-flung regions like never before. Under Darius, Persia reached its zenith in wealth, cultural integration, and architectural splendor, exemplified by the magnificent city of Persepolis. However, Darius's ambitions eventually sparked conflicts that would define his legacy. His expansion into the Greek-influenced Ionian cities fueled a series of tensions culminating in open warfare with mainland Greece. While Darius had grand plans to subjugate these smaller city-states, he underestimated the power of unity and the indomitable spirit of free Greek polities. These brewing storms set the stage for legendary confrontations, conflicts that would ultimately chip away at the empire's foundation. 3. The Greek-Persian Wars, Marathon, Thermopylae, Salamis, and Plataea. With the Ionian Revolt in 499 BCE, Greek city-states under Persian dominion sought to cast off foreign rule. Although Darius quickly suppressed the rebellion, Athens had played a supportive role, effectively provoking the Persian king. Determined to punish Athens and extend his authority into mainland Greece, Darius launched an ambitious campaign in 490 BCE. The result was the fabled Battle of Marathon, a clash between the mighty Persian army and a smaller but fiercely motivated Athenian force. In a stunning upset, the Athenians emerged victorious, a triumph that reverberated throughout Greece and shattered the notion of Persian invincibility. Darius's death precluded immediate retaliation, but his son Xerxes took up the mantle. Seeking vengeance and expansion, Xerxes mustered a colossal invasion force around 480 BCE, comprising an alliance of numerous subject peoples. The Greek response was precariously unified, as traditionally fractious city-states like Sparta and Athens put aside their differences. At Thermopylae, King Leonidas and his Spartan-led contingent made a legendary stand against overwhelming Persian numbers. Though ultimately a tactical defeat for the Greeks, Thermopylae became a symbol of heroic resistance. A swift Persian advance led to the evacuation and partial destruction of Athens, but the naval battle of Salamis turned the tide. The Athenian-led fleet cleverly trapped and decimated Persian ships in the straits, crippling Xerxes' naval supremacy. The following year saw the Battle of Plataea, where a well-coordinated Greek force decisively routed Persian ground troops. Persia's attempts to dominate Greece were thus thwarted. While the empire remained vast, these defeats signaled a shift. Greek city-states had proven they could defy the greatest empire of their time. More than just battles, Marathon, Thermopylae, Salamis, and Plataea became defining moments in Western civilization's narrative. The Persian Empire, though still formidable, had encountered a formidable rival with a fierce will to resist. 4. The Age of Xerxes and the Height of Persian Power. In the aftermath of these costly campaigns, Xerxes found his empire at a crossroads. Despite setbacks in Greece, Persia was still a colossus stretching from the Mediterranean to the Indus Valley. Xerxes spent considerable resources beautifying Persepolis, expanding its palatial complex and commissioning grand reliefs that showcased the empire's diversity. Meanwhile, satraps ruled in distant lands, quelling rebellions and gathering taxes. The empire's highways thrummed with commerce, carrying goods such as textiles, spices, and precious metals to and from the furthest corners of Persian dominion. Diplomatic marriages and alliances also helped stabilize frontiers, at least temporarily. Nonetheless, under the surface, tensions simmered. Administering such a vast territory required constant oversight, and the imperial court was rife with intrigue. Xerxes himself reportedly grew more reclusive, haunted by the failures in Greece and the logistical burden of maintaining power. The lingering sense that Persia had been challenged, and even humiliated, by smaller polities created both resentment and caution among the ruling elite. In many ways, Xerxes represented both the peak and a subtle turning point for the Achaemenid dynasty. The empire had achieved heights of cultural exchange, architectural grandeur, and economic prosperity, yet cracks were forming. Provinces on the edge of the empire were difficult to control, and local satraps often became mini-kings. Meanwhile, the Greeks, once thought to be a minor nuisance, were evolving into a robust threat under rising powers like Macedon. As Xerxes' reign progressed, it became clear that a new chapter of Persian-Greek relations was unfolding, one that would lead to an even greater confrontation in the decades to come. 5. Culture, administration, and internal struggles. Even as martial ambitions waned in some regions, the Persian Empire thrived culturally and administratively. The Achaemenids had perfected the art of governance over diverse populations. They allowed local customs to flourish, granted religious freedoms, and adopted best practices from each territory. Be it the Babylonian tradition of astronomy, the Lydian invention of coinage, or the administrative cunning of Median officials. Royal inscriptions, delicately carved into stone reliefs, proclaimed the king's benevolence and divinely sanctioned rule. Taxes were collected in gold, silver, grain, and other goods, swelling the imperial coffers. Behind the grand facades, however, internal rivalries posed an ever-present threat. The further one traveled from the core territories of Persia, the more autonomy local governors exercised. Some satraps, entrusted with large military forces and the authority to collect substantial tributes, were known to rule like semi-independent monarchs. Minor revolts occasionally erupted, either due to heavy taxation or personal ambition. Royal family members eyeing the throne could also exploit these tensions, leading to palace coups and unrest. Such internal fissures would prove devastating in the long run. Competing factions at court drained imperial unity, and resources that might have strengthened border defenses were diverted to quell insurrections. In the west, Greek powers were growing bolder. In the east, the empire's vastness made effective communication and rapid troop deployment a logistical nightmare. The empire still possessed monumental wealth and prestige, but it was becoming clear that a storm was brewing, one that would come from the north, spearheaded by a brilliant young Macedonian with an insatiable hunger for conquest. Six, Alexander the Great, the decisive conquest. Perhaps the most direct and famous answer to the question, who defeated the Persian Empire, lies in the name Alexander the Great. Born in 356 BCE, Alexander inherited the throne of Macedon at the age of 20 following the assassination of his father, King Philip II. Philip's reforms had turned Macedon's once modest army into a disciplined, formidable force, blending cavalry charges with innovative use of the phalanx. With Greece largely subdued under Macedonian hegemony, Alexander set his sights on the vast, wealthy lands of Persia. In 334 BCE, Alexander crossed the Hellespont, the modern Dardanelles, launching his invasion with remarkable boldness. At the Battle of the Granicus River, he won his first major victory over Persian satraps in Asia Minor. Within a year, the young king had secured most of the coastal cities, thus cutting off Persian naval power. The subsequent Battle of Issus in 333 BCE pitted Alexander's smaller army against a Persian force led by King Darius III himself. Once again, Alexander's tactical genius prevailed. Darius fled the field, leaving behind his family and royal treasury. Now, the road to the empire's heartland lay open. In a calculated move, Alexander pushed south, capturing the critical port cities along the Phoenician coast, including Tyre, then moved into Egypt, where he founded the city of Alexandria. By 331 BCE, he marched back into the Near East to confront Darius III one final time at the Battle of Gaugamela. Despite being heavily outnumbered, Alexander employed superior battlefield tactics, swiftly outmaneuvering Persian chariots and cavalry. The result was a catastrophic defeat for the Persians, and Darius once again fled. Gaugamela is often cited as one of the most decisive battles in ancient history. It effectively spelled the end of Persian rule. Alexander's subsequent capture of Babylon, Susa, and Persepolis marked the symbolic and literal downfall of the Achaemenid Empire. In a moment as controversial as it was symbolic, parts of Persepolis were burned, an act some interpret as revenge for the previous Persian destruction in Greece. Darius III was later murdered by one of his own satraps while fleeing Alexander's relentless pursuit. With the Achaemenid ruler gone, Alexander claimed the Persian throne, continuing his campaigns eastward to the edges of the known world. In mere years, the once unassailable Persian Empire had fallen to an audacious and tactically brilliant Macedonian king. Yet, even Alexander's conquest was not just about force of arms. He consciously adopted Persian customs, married a Persian noblewoman, and incorporated Persian officials into his administration. This policy of fusion was meant to stabilize his new empire, but it also hinted at an emerging Hellenistic culture, a blend of Greek and Eastern elements that would shape the Mediterranean and Near East for centuries to come. Alexander's untimely death at the age of 32 in 323 BCE left behind a gargantuan realm that soon fractured under the weight of its ambitious generals. The once united empire splintered, but the question who defeated the Persian Empire would remain unequivocally associated with the name Alexander the Great. Seven, Aftermath, Successors and the Birth of the Hellenistic Age. Alexander's victory forever changed the geopolitical landscape. With the fall of the Achaemenid Empire, power dynamics in the ancient world pivoted drastically. No longer was Persia the unassailable behemoth threatening Greek independence. Instead, the conquered territories were divided among Alexander's generals, known as the Diadochi, who sparred for supremacy. Out of this turmoil rose successor kingdoms like the Seleucid Empire in Asia and the Ptolemaic Empire in Egypt. These new states retained many Persian administrative practices, even as they layered on Greek language, art, and political customs. Still, local populations continued their everyday lives, preserving much of their heritage. Zoroastrianism remained influential, and Persian traditions in architecture, ceremony, and governance endured. Over time, interactions between Greek and Middle Eastern cultures produced a vibrant fusion. Hellenistic art, for instance, combined Greek realism with Eastern ornamentation. Key cities like Seleucia on the Tigris or the many Alexandrias became hubs of trade, learning, and cultural cross-pollination. Even centuries after Alexander, echoes of the old Achaemenid systems could still be detected in taxation structures, administrative divisions, and legal norms. In effect, Alexander may have defeated the Persian Empire militarily, but many pillars of Persian civilization lived on through new regimes. While the Achaemenids were gone, their legacy survived, woven into the cultural and administrative tapestry of successor states. This synergy shaped the broader Near East long after the dust of conquest had settled, proving that an empire's defeat on the battlefield does not always translate to the demise of its cultural identity. So, who defeated the Persian Empire? The immediate and most resounding answer is Alexander the Great. His relentless campaign dismantled the Achaemenid dynasty and reshaped the contours of the ancient world. But it wasn't a single force that toppled this grand empire. The Greeks had already proven Persia was vulnerable during the Persian Wars. Internal strife, overextended supply lines, and satraps with personal ambitions all combined to wear down the empire from within. Alexander's brilliance simply delivered the final blow. Yet the Persian Empire's story did not end in total oblivion. Its administrative efficiencies, cultural wealth, and tolerance for diversity laid foundations that even the conquerors adopted. The synthesis of Greek and Persian worlds gave rise to the Hellenistic Age, an era of cosmopolitan exchange that reverberated through antiquity. The question of who truly defeated Persia might best be answered by looking at how its legacy endured, long after the last Achaemenid king drew breath. Thank you for joining me in this journey across centuries of ambition, power, and cultural evolution. If you found this deep dive into the ancient world enlightening, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more historical explorations. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep the flame of history alive.